This is about Monroe Manly Camp. And my first memories of Bill Monroe is just about my first memory, period. Because my daddy, I've told you before, Daddy was stomped down Monroe fan, you know. So, and he listened to him and he sang his songs and I just grew up loving Bill Monroe too, And back then, when I was old enough, and I'm gonna guess from my first memories, probably four, maybe 4 years old, of Daddy grabbing me, and here we'd go to the beer joint down there in Britain, and he done it on purpose. But he'd set me up on the counter, the bar, and I'd sing whatever Bill Monroe song I wanted to. I knew a bunch of them, but I'd sing the latest jukebox hits because I loved what was happening in the late '40s, and Webb Pierce, Hank Williams, of course, and Lefty Frizzell. Wonderful, wonderful music. And I'd sing their songs, and all the patrons of these beer joints would throw money at me, and I'm sure that's how I can remember it so well. Because here comes quarters, and 50-cent pieces back then. They come, and I can remember that just plain as day. And you know what else I remember about them beer joints? It ain't got a thing to do with Monroe Manly Camp. But I love going to them, and you could see them at night, and it's neon lights all over them beer joints. Now, I thought that was the prettiest thing to see that, and I still think that. You remember that at all?
Everybody had neon lights.
Yeah, and it's all around.
Lit up.
Neon signs inside the beer joint. Yeah. But anyway, that's my earliest memories are of Bill Monroe, and of course I listened to him on the opera too. Daddy did too. And even when I started dating, we'd go on a date, with my lady friend, and two of them I especially can tell this about. When the Martha White show would come on the opera on Saturday night, well, I'd turn the opera on the radio in the car, and here'd come that theme song and all, and less than Earl. Dottie Turner, bless her heart, she'd say, if you're gonna listen to that, you can just take me home. Well, I took her ass right home. And I ain't gonna name the other one. Dottie's dead, beautiful, beautiful woman. She died of cancer a while back. Anyway, the other one I ain't gonna name her, but I took her home too. And she still every once in a while will say something about that. But that tells you how much I've enjoyed bluegrass music coming from Bill Monroe, then Lester and Earl, all my life. And to be able to go and ride the bus and work with Bill Monroe for the time that I did, amazing to be able to do that. It was amazing to have him call me on the phone. Can you play the bass? I could that much. I said, well, yes, sir, I can play the bass before. And I did. I played it a little bit until Mark Kimberly come along. But I enjoyed being with Bill Monroe and hearing what he done. Early of a morning, I'd be up, and sometimes I'd drive, and I'd hear him sitting back here in a chair. I'd hear him, and he wouldn't be humming, and he wouldn't be singing. He would just be making sounds with his mouth into sometimes a melody, sometimes not, just sound, And he's working on, I knew he was just exercising his throat, I guess is what he was doing. But it was so amazing to hear that and to hear how clear and beautiful that was. Nobody saying a word. He done that more than once that I was on the road. First time we left, second time we left, going north on 65, and his bus quit in Indiana. So we waited. James was coming behind us. So James showed up, and all of us got on James' motorhome. Well, the first thing James done when his daddy got on that motorhome was put on a flat and screw tape and played it loud as you could.
What did Bill think about that?
Oh, he didn't say a word. He didn't say not one word. And James just grinning the whole time. That's so funny. Went to a festival up in Wisconsin, and Pete Coleman was playing with James. And I never will forget, Monroe introduced on the stage, and he introduced me, and he said, "Now y'all think my son James got a big old bass player?" Talking about Pete Coleman. Pete was short, but he was that big around. He ain't got a big bass player. And he introduced me. It was fun. It was. He was something. We played in Pennsylvania, Chris. And Jimmy Martin was on the show, just us and Jimmy Martin. And it was a big racetrack and a fairground, huge racetrack. Grandstands full of people. And we pulled up in there, and everybody sitting around. And Frog, Jimmy, was supposed to open the show. Well, he didn't, and he wasn't going to, and I didn't know that, but Bill Monroe said, "You watch. He won't come into this place until we go on stage." Exactly what happened. When we went on stage, here comes that bus blowing a horn. Jimmy Martin coming in. Monroe had him pegged. He knew what he was going to do. He done it on purpose. Anything to upstage Bill Monroe, which he didn't upstage him at all. That was a fun trip there. I've been so lucky to know Bill Monroe and Kenny Baker and Joe Stewart, for God's sake. Man, can you imagine playing with them three all the time? It has to just mold into you what they're doing, the rhythm and the timing. And Joe had all of that, sure enough. He did. And I'll tell this story about me going to these shows when they come down here, they'd come here and work with the Sullivan family. And I'd go see them shows. And me and Alvin, and I'd call ahead and buy the front row, every seat. No matter if it was a church or an auditorium, didn't matter. And thank goodness I finally could afford to do that. And I'd sit there, and I'd done that because I didn't want to be way back yonder and the sound be out of whack, which it was a lot. I wanted to be as close as me and you so I could hear and see what they were doing, and I didn't want them not hear. And I'd sit there and squall. I had a handkerchief all in my overall. I'd sit there and squall and wipe the tears out of my eyes. And I'd buy the product and have them to autograph it, but that's all. I wouldn't bother them, didn't even want to bother them. And finally, I've said this before, at Fayette, Alabama, me and Alva went up there. Alva's another story I need to tell about. We went up there, and he and I were walking up the steps to this auditorium in downtown Fayette, Alabama. The old auditorium gone now. And just as we got to the door opened, and Kenny Baker and Joe Stewart walked out the door, right into it. And Baker said, "There's that Huffmaster fella." I didn't know how he knew my name. Didn't have a clue. And from that day till he died, we were buddies. But the reason he knew my name was because they all wanted to know who in the hell the fella was that sat out there in the front row every night that they were down here and squalled. So they made it a point to find that out. And we were friends from then till he died. And I miss him so much, Baker. I played a many a tune with him, and it was just a learning experience to be able to do that. You know? And it's so much fun. And again, motorcycles don't loaf. They need to stop here at loafing. The happiest, biggest thing happened in my musical endeavor in my life was at Bean Blossom, and I'm over at our camp. You've been there. And over one evening, and Johnny Lee Baker, Kenny's youngest boy, come running over there and said, "Daddy wants you to come bring your guitar and play rhythm for him over at Jim Peever's camp." Well, that's it, right there. I get chill bumps right now thinking about being summoned by Kenny Baker. You know, that's amazing for me to even think that that happened to me. You know. So many good things happened to me at Bean Blossom. And Alva too. I loved Alva. And Alva is the fellow that showed me how to play. And the reason he showed me how to play, and well, all of us, you and me and Mike Compton, and well, everybody. Alva he's still the man. Alva's brother-in-law, Buddy Jones. I used to hire them. Buddy played guitar with Alva. And I'd hire them to come to my shop and play Christmas parties or any party. Or if I heard they were playing somewhere, I'd go listen to them, and I became friends with Alva. And his brother-in-law, Buddy Jones, left, moved to Florida, and Alva quit playing. Well, I couldn't figure that out at all, and it hurt. You know. So I went one day and asked him. He worked at automotive. I said, why, how come you don't play nowhere anymore? He said, well, my rhythm player left. Ding, right then. I went, I think, the next day and bought a guitar and took it to him and said, now show me how to play rhythm to you. Well, you know, Alva, I can't show you, I can't teach you how to do nothing. No, he's always just completely against anything. I said, all right, you just take your guitar and sit there and play, and I'll take this one and sit over here and watch you. And in about 6 weeks, we was playing everywhere. How can you not learn from him, you know? Because he was good as anybody. Whatever instrument he chose to play, he was as good as anybody. And that's how much I think I have a limit.
Me too.
Yeah. And he's responsible for me going all over the world, you know. He's the reason for it. And I've took tapes of him playing guitar with me. I still have it. That we done at the Tin Barn. That's another story. And I've had people at the Grand Ole Opry listening to that tape, and boy, he can sure play. Just me and him. And Ellis was on the mandolin. And boy, he can sure play and leave, and it wouldn't be long they'd come back to play that tape again. They want to hear him again. That's how good Alva is. And thank goodness I had him to tutor from. Yeah, thank goodness. Alva, he was totally negative about damn near everything. But he was our totally negative mentor. And how many times did he do this right here? When we'd be playing, you the same way. You've done the same thing. And I don't care if it was at his house, my house, the Tin Barn, or Bean Blossom. If it got that much out, he'd scream, "Timing!" That was his word. Timing! And he'd holler it at you. He meant, stay in time, damn it. Don't be, you know.
I've gotten that lecture a lot. And he screamed at me a lot about it.
Alva could tune a guitar, and a $500 tuner couldn't get it any truer than what he done. He didn't need a tuner. He heard pitch, and that's rare for somebody like him. And hell, I would never even worry about tuning my guitar, because he was going to retune it anyway, you know. And he would, and it wouldn't take but just a second. He'd have it right. That's hard to do, but he heard it right there.
Well, tell me about Bean Blossom and all those pictures with Kenny Baker around the campfire?
Well, you know, I started going there in Alva, I think in '71. And of course, we wasn't friends with Kenny or nothing. We just knew, you know. But when I got back there at the Ward's camp and I heard it going on back there. And Johnny Lee, Kenny's son, was from Dayton. He lived in Dayton, Ohio, was where the Ward was from. Anyway, I heard the music going on. It got pretty good, so I finally started camping back there with him and got to be friends with him. Still am. And Baker would show up, and we got to playing some together. And I had all his records, so I knew the tune, you know. And we'd play, and he got to where he enjoyed it. And I've got pictures of just me and him sitting there playing, and me playing guitar to Baker. He'd come back there, even when he was working between sets. He'd come back there and play, and I'd play with him too. You know, one day Baker and I were standing up in there in the midst of the camp there by the fire. And there was probably 40 people standing around there. There was always a bunch of people there because of the music, you know. And we was playing, and we was standing 3 feet apart, me playing, and a young'un walked right up and got between us and looked at Baker. And he just looking at Kenny playing like this, you know. And he would never turn his face. He just looked at Kenny till we got through. And he looked at Kenny and says, he had a fiddle in his hand, case. He says, "Can I play a tune with you?" And Baker said, "Yeah, get your fiddle out." So he did. And he started playing. And he played Baker's latest album from start to finish, one whole side of the thing. And he played it really, really well. He was about 12 or 13 years old, and it was Jimmy Campbell. You remember Jimmy Campbell?
Yeah.
Oh, I loved him. He was like my kid. I answered the phone at the station inn when they called down there to tell us at the station that Jimmy Campbell was found dead. Hurt me bad. And I had to go out there and tell his ex-wife. She was sitting in there too. Jimmy Campbell was a good fiddle player. But he stood right there and watched Kenny Baker the whole time till he got through with that TV.
That had to make Kenny Baker real happy.
Oh yeah, and well,
yeah,
I tell you what Baker said when he wouldn't quit. Now he just kept playing one tune after the other, and I, of course, playing with him to him. And when he did quit, Baker looked around and looked at him, and he looked up and he said, "Now, by God, he's been listening to my records, ain't he?" That's what Baker said. That was it. That's a fun memory for me to have like that.
How many teams do you think you learned sitting around the fire at Bean Blossom?
A bunch. And I learned Jerusalem Reed from Linda. She taught me how to play that. I didn't know the chords of that thing. And she got the guitar and showed me the chords to Jerusalem Reed, which is simple as it can be, but I just didn't know it, you know. And I learned it right there in that camp, around that camp. It was amazing. And when Baker found out I could play that, here we went, too.